Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's Karen Ray with OptionVue. How's everybody today? Hope you're all doing well. And wanted to tell you about Chicago weather real quick. It's overcast, cloudy, and lots of good fall leaves out here. So it's been very nice fall, and we're looking forward to, in a couple weeks, going to the Traders Expo, which is in Las Vegas again this year at Caesars Palace, November 20th through the 23rd. Len will be there as one of the guest speakers and also on the options panel discussion on Friday afternoon. We're very much looking forward to seeing him, hearing him at the discussion, and we've got a couple surprises for you at the booth. Whoever signs up for or brings a friend that signs up for OptionVue, and got some really fun things there at the booth for you. So make sure you stop by and see us, and we look forward to seeing all of you. I think a couple people that are on the webinar today are actually attending also. Steve Karras, welcome, and thanks for attending the Vegas show in a couple weeks. And also welcome to some of our European customers today, this afternoon, or this evening your time. So today's presentation is going to be speaking about just the very basics. And if you've been a customer a long time, this is probably going to be quite boring. But if you are a trial customer, this is going to show you, especially for the beginners to the software, the ABCs of OptionVue and how to really get started trading using the software. I'm going to be discussing how to get some trading ideas in the first place, how to look at price charts for patterns in some of the trends, the statistics, which would be what are the chances? What are the chances of something happening in the stock? And that's going to be using the probability calculator. And then I'm going to take you up until the TradeFinder, finding specific option trades using the TradeFinder. So with that, let's get started with the software. When you download OptionVue, for the very first time, it's going to actually download on your hard drive. It's going to reside on your computer. You're going to actually access the data over the internet with the servers that are in New York. And we have 12 servers. These are called NetView servers. When you first see OptionVue and you download it, then the first thing I want you to do after you download it and go to the help section, very first thing, and check out the tutorial video. And this is actually going to start with Steve Lentz, who's our Director of Education. Each of these little sections, it runs for 4 to 5 minutes, and we're going to take you through the entire overview of the program. Then down at the bottom, there's some additional video resources right on our website at OptionVue.com, and you can just click right here to see all the additional webinars. We have done so many webinars over the years to introduce you to the features and benefits of the software. So that would be step number one after you download. The second step is to look over here and to make sure that this little ball is going around our logo, and that if it's not, that means that you don't have any real-time prices coming in. When we ship a trial to you, we have real-time prices, and we get those from our servers in New York. Our servers in New York bring prices real-time from QuoteView. They bring in real-time scanning through our OpScan feature right here. And they bring in information from our back testing, which you see NetView BackTrader. You would go there to get your back testing capability. And those are all coming from New York servers. We have 12 servers, like I said. I'm on NetView 7 right now. That means I'm on the 7th of the 12 servers. And right now, the quotes that are being taken up are 718 quotes. And one quote consists of just something like this: UNG, OMER, gold, spider, apple, QQQs, and so forth. So if you're not getting data, what you need to do is just left click right here on our globe and make sure that the continuous data source says QuoteVue. Now, we also, as of now, which many people don't know, we've got connections to 2 other data services, Interactive Brokers and Thinkorswim via a DDE link. So those are the 3 real-time data services that we hook up with. And you want to make sure you come here and click QuoteVue first, because that's for a trial customer. That's the very first thing you'll want to look at and make sure you've got. And with our trial customers, we have all of the left-hand things checkmarked here. So you're going to be getting prices on stock and index options as a trial customer. You will be able to get quotes on the commodities, bonds, currencies, but you have to pay for those. Those are $80 a month exchange fees. So the other thing you can always do then, after you check your quotes, next thing is to learn about the batch update area. And when you click down here, you can batch update your files. By the way, I'm going to just give the terminology or nomenclature for an asset. An asset in OptionVue is like a stock symbol Apple, and it's all of its coordinating or options that go along with Apple, the weeklies, the leaps, the monthlies, the regular options, the quarterlies if they exist. So that's called an asset. So an asset file is going to be probably, gosh, 500 to 700 symbols, because each option is considered a symbol. And what you want to do is batch update your asset files by clicking there. And it's going to batch update, meaning not just the stock price, but all the option prices as well. And you can say all asset files that come with the program that are predefined here in this very first screen called the quotes display. You can update all asset files and say when now, or you can set it up at a particular time or at one time each trading day. So that's one area to be aware of for batch updating. The second area, let me just make sure that I didn't change something. The second area that you can do a batch update at any time as a beginner is to go up here to NetView. NetView is another word for our servers in New York, and that's why it's NV7, NetView 7, and NetView up here. Go to NetView, Update Asset Files. And again, we're going to say all asset files. I'm just putting it back, all asset files, and we want to also update our price chart files, because OptionVue comes with price charts on every single optionable asset. We're going to be able to look at, as well as a non-optionable asset, we're going to be able to look at a price chart file if we want to update the price chart, the very first thing we want to do. So make sure that's checked, and then say when now, and then say OK. So as soon as you do that, you know that everything has been updated and everything's in good working order to get started in order to do your analysis. So the next thing then would be, okay, what stocks or what indexes or what futures am I actually going to look at? And there's a really good website that Steve Lentz told me about yesterday that gives you some good trading ideas. It's called FinViz. And I don't know if we want to do that right now, but at the end, maybe if we have time, we could look at FinViz. It's F-I-N-V as in Victor, I-Z.com. It is a free website. And they give you charts and tell you what the overachievers are and the underachievers for the day. The other area right in OptionVue that you can actually find some really good trade ideas, these buttons are set up very systematically and they're organized in a very methodical and thoughtful way. The auto scan tools are the 3 buttons that actually give you some initial trading ideas about what stocks to look at as well as what options to look at. So they're called the auto scan tools, and the one that I want to look at right now is called the survey. The survey is, again, going to survey information off of our servers in New York. And last night I went into the survey and I actually picked some of these out already for us to save us a little time. but I went here and I said, how many assets to pick? Hang on just a second. What's going on?
I'm not sharing.
I'm not sharing. I mean, nobody's been able to see any of this? Oh, no. I'm sorry, everybody.
Shut off and start listening.
Okay. I'm sorry. Should I go back then and start over a little bit, or what should I do here? Okay, I'll just pick up here from where I was speaking before. Anyway, let me just talk before I get back into survey. For those who did not see my screen before, the main thing I was showing was the coming here to look at the data on the far right and making sure that QuoteVue was the continuous data source of choice. And then also batch updating here is the batch update screen where we want to check to make sure that we are getting prices on the stock as well as all the associated options, okay? So that was the first thing I was showing to check. Also to check what NetView server you're on. And then the other area to check was here at the top, NetView, and then update asset files. So I wanted to make sure that as a beginner, you want to make sure you've got all the good prices coming in during the day or with end of day information by going here and saying all asset files and then updating your price chart files. That way everything's organized and ready to go and review something and saying now, okay? So then I was talking about the auto scan tools, that there's 3 very excellent ways to get trading ideas right in the software. We don't have to go to FinViz, but we can actually come here and look in 3 different buttons. These have particular applications. The survey actually does a survey of the database of all optionable assets. I had set this survey last night to pick 15, in this case, stocks, and I picked them based on the greatest dollar volume of options traded because I wanted to see the most liquid stocks that have the greatest dollar volume of options, and I can sort them as well on that. Now, there's many choices, and in our user's guide, which I want to show where that is too, by the way, because a beginner needs to see the user's guide, but in the user's guide, you've got all kinds of choices here in terms of what types of scans you want to do globally to find different stock option opportunities. You can also scan for indexes, bonds, commodities, currencies, and then groups of things. So there's a lot of choices here for scanning, and I had done a go yesterday, and I had actually gotten that search, and those items come up on the list. We can search again right now, but I had done a list last night and picked those. And so here's the top 15 candidates today. And if I want to do the next step then is to how do I get these symbols into this very nice quotes display over here. They already are here, but just to show you, you would highlight the first one and then scroll down to the last one, hit the shift key on your keyboard, and then hit insert. And then all of those symbols and asset files, all the associated options with them, will convert over here, all right? So that's the first starting point, would be to get all those symbols into the quotes display, because the quotes display is like, you know, where you're starting from everything from scratch. You're working off of this screen to go into everything else that's in the OptionVue program. So now that they're here, I've actually updated prices on all of these by going to this NetView and remember, update asset files, and then I had hit the selected assets, number 3 button, and I chose the copy all assets from currently selected group. Well, this group is the group that's selected. Let me just make sure. So I selected something on this group. I went to NetView, update asset files. I said selected assets, and then I chose the 3rd button here to get these all from this list copied in here. Same thing with this. I selected these files, hit the 3rd button so that this group only would copy in here, and then I can say go, and you're going to actually see it updating these particular files. So once we've got something to start with, then we can go through and do the next step, which is I want to look for some price chart, some price charts for patterns in the trends to see, you know, is Apple going up or down or sideways in a price chart, because I need a forecast. Okay, that's the first thing I'm looking for, is a forecast in the stock, so that I can then go to TradeFinder, right here, the TradeFinder button, and have OptionVue give some trade recommendations. And I was with a client on the phone yesterday. He said, you know, oh gosh, I think this is pretty intimidating, because he hadn't tried it on his own yet. And then after about half an hour on the phone with him and sharing some things with him, especially the price charts. He loved the price charts area, and he said, you know, maybe this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I think I can see why OptionVue is the standard bearer in options analysis. And he said, I really think I can get some really good trade ideas using OptionVue. So it just takes a little familiarity. It just takes a little bit of learning and a little patience, and you'll be on your way to really using the powerful aspects of the program to start making some trades and making money. So let's look at the price chart, Apple. So we'll highlight Apple, we'll hit the price chart button, we'll bring up a price chart, and we've got a lot of buttons here that have to do with price. Everything has to do here with the price chart. I'm going to just declutter a little bit by getting rid of the volatility chart, which we can talk about later. But right now, all I can see here is the price chart. And we can see that Apple's been in a nice kind of a pattern between 550 and 387. And now it's at the ending point today. It was opened at 519, closed at 512, so we've got a little downtick here for the day. So yeah, I would say that if we were to see this, you know, we've got a pattern developing here, a low here, 455, and now we're at the close was 512. So I would say we're probably on a little bit of an upward pattern here. So what you're going to do then as a trader and an investor is to actually look at the price charts, go through them one at a time, and this is a very important button right here, these browse previous and browse next. So if I want to browse the next price chart without closing anything, I would see Spider. I would then go up here and hit browse next. Okay? So now I'm looking at the Spider price chart, kind of a nice pattern here from 140 up to 180. And we'll browse the next one, Facebook. And you can kind of real quickly scan through and browse these different prospective, in Tesla, of course, we had some earnings this week and they weren't as good as expected. So now we've seen a big drop here from earlier in the week on Tesla. We've got the iShares Russell 2000 Index. Again, today it dropped a little bit as well. It started out opening at 109, closing at 107. And you can just kind of, you know, with your background in technical analysis, you can scroll through these price charts. Here again, we started at 65 back in January. We're at closing of 81 today. So that's a really nice upward momentum on the QQQs. Go to Netflix chart next. That looks kind of more in a holding or kind of a sideways. Well, not really. It's started at 200. We're at 350. It looks sideways because it's condensing so much information here for me. That's on a nice bullish trend. And Google and so forth. So we can, the price line looks really good from 600 all the way up to 1100 in the course of this year. LinkedIn from 100 to 225-ish. Boeing 70 to 130, so it's doubled this year. So you can kind of go through these and pick something out. The other thing you can do let's just pick one for the heck of it. All right, I think I'd actually picked one of these, and I can't remember which one it was last night. But let's pick one and project I think it was Intel actually. I can go to previous and look at Intel. Okay, let's just for the heck of it say that we think Intel is going to continue to go up. I would like to give a little forecast. And when I click this bullseye button, that's going to give me a little box, a rectangular box that I can move up. I just click in the middle of it, left click in the middle of the box or the rectangle, and I can move it up, I can move it down, I can move it to the right, I can move it, I can actually change the, make it turn into a square and condense it even further. And when I do that, that's actually giving me what's up here. It is depicting what I'm doing with this box. So my price range now is $24.13 to $24.79, and my date range, which is the width of the box, is I'm saying I want to get out of the trade by November 8th to the 14th. So somewhere in that time frame. So this is kind of a predictive sort of situation. Now I change the box. I have the price range displaying 24 to 25. I can make that wider if I think it's going to be 24 to, say, 25, and then the date range is, I've made that wider, 11/11 to 12/3. I don't want to have that big of a holding period of time. But see, you can play with this, and this X1 represents the fact that you're within that next expiration date. So I want to bump that out maybe, and maybe bring it up here a little bit, so that kind of goes in line with my chart pattern here that's being shown. So let's just say we're looking at the target there. When we set a target in the price chart area, that target is going to actually now transfer so that when I go to my next area, TradeFinder, TradeFinder is going to actually use this target to come up with trade recommendations for me. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. I can, just before I do this, I can bump this out even further. So if I go off the chart here, just move it off, left click, hold it, and move it off, I can see I can keep going further and further out in time to expiration. So if I really have a long-term trend pattern holding period, I can go way out here to X3 and use that as my target for, this upward sort of scenario if I want to hold it way out to the third expiration. So again, I'm going to bring it back in a little bit closer, and let's see. All right, so I think this looks good. Just maybe we'll do a short-term trade here. Okay, so with that in mind, and I've looked, let's just say, through all of my different price charts, now we move on to the TradeFinder. The only thing is I want to show you one more thing before we do TradeFinder, because you might want to really pay attention to the chances are, the statistics, the probabilities of something happening on Intel. I'm going to look at a price chart. I'm going to look at a matrix on Intel by clicking the matrix button. That's where I can see all the goodies about Intel, the price of Intel, the last price, the change, the high, the low, etc. And then on the left, I see all the calls and all the puts. The at the monies are marked by the little caret. And I have prices, but if I want to go ahead and use this little button in the upper right corner, it would actually update the quotes display again and update any open matrices, which would include Intel. So that's the fast way to get a quote, is to use this little refresh, as we call it, refresh button, okay? So now that I've gotten the price of Intel for today, all the option prices, and I can see kind of what's defined here by this legend. This is a on and off button, so I can click it on to see a legend or a directory of this transposes last would be here, change would be here, and so forth. The same thing with this. The legend for market price is this column. The legend for the market implied or mid-implied volatility is this column. And any prospective trades that I want to do would be showing up in this column. So the legend is a turn on, turn off, on, off type of thing. I can actually see also what's being defined here, because as I scroll across, I've got November trading and expiring in 9 days on November 16th, December expiring in 44 days on December 21st, and then January expiring in 72 days on January 18th. There's a little right arrow here, and if I want to scroll more and see more, I can do that. I can also make these screens wider. I can also maximize the screen by clicking that button there in the middle, right here. This button maximizes the screen, as you can see, or I can minimize it again. So, and I can move the screen over anywhere on the monitor area. So if I want to see more months, I can see December, January, February, April. There's even more because there's a right arrow here. So I can go into January L, standing for leap, and another L for the leap of the next year. Now there's no more showing because that's grayed out. Now I have to go backwards. I can look backwards by seeing the left arrow, and I can go back to the very beginning. Our first front month option is the November. So this kind of gives you an idea of all of the different options that are open and trading. There's a scroll button here, so I can scroll up to see more calls and down to see the lower range. Same thing with the puts. I can scroll up to see the more puts here, down to see more puts there. If I want to see the entire array of options all being defined, I could come to define and then options, and I can actually see 20 and then scroll all the way back. There's room for literally hundreds of strikes here to 28.5. So 20 to 28.5 is my entire range. I can have more strikes than this or fewer strikes than this just by deleting from this list or going over here to this screen, Auto Strike. And Auto Strike shows the extent, the in-the-money extent or the out-of-the-money extent of all the calls and all the puts, and I can change things around. I can take leaps out if I don't want those, and I can include the weeklies on Intel. When I make a change, then I do want to hit the Apply button and then say OK. And then hit Refresh, and then I can get these quotes coming in again. So again, we've got now we've got the weeklies. Before the Novembers were just the first month. Now we've got the weeklies, which are going to expire in 2 days, actually tomorrow, but they always go to the Saturday after the Friday expiration. Then I also wanted to show real quick before we go into the probability calculator what these shaded areas mean, because on your screen, and you can change the colors by the way, but you can actually see the shaded areas with S. If I click that S again, it takes it off. If I click the S again, it puts it on. What is S? Well, S stands for statistical volatility, which is calculated by the high and the low price movement of the stock every day and exponentially weighted. Right now, that number is 18%. And when you hit the S, that actually gives you a first and second standard deviation move of the stock, and then shows you what range those options are in. If those are in a first standard deviation range or a second standard deviation range. So that's what the colors mean, and that's what S means in this case. All right, now let's go to the probability, which is the dice. We like that because it's getting close to the Vegas Traders Expo, where we're going to see a lot of dice throwing. And we've got the dice showing our probability calculator. The probability calculator, I think, is, for me anyway, very, very useful because it's going to take today's price at 2406 of Intel, the statistical volatility, which is 18%, that's coming from up here, and then depending on our holding period for the trade, we can put any date in here I want to just see where, again, where was, based on that price chart, we have a price range that we were projecting of, say, I'm going to round it off, 25 to 26, okay? And we have a holding period of 11/8 to 11/15. So using that kind of as the background information, I want to go back over to the probability and look at a holding period somewhere between November 8th and November 15th. So let's just say 11/10. No, let's say 11/12 because that's next week on Tuesday. Is that Tuesday? Yes, it is. Okay. And so when I type in a holding period of between today and next Tuesday, the probability calculator shows me the first and second standard deviation move and the actual stock price that would be within a first standard deviation, which is a 68% probability that the stock's going to be somewhere between 2356 and 2457. A second standard deviation move between now and next Tuesday with the statistical volatility at 18% is going to show us 23 to 25 as our potential range that Intel is going to be in. And then we've got a third standard deviation, which are the wings. That's the further extents of where the stock might be from a mathematical probability standpoint. 95% encompasses a third standard deviation. So that means that the stock could be somewhere between 2259 and 2563, 95% of the time between now and next week on Tuesday. Now, the fun part is also really cool down here, and that's where you can use, this is a Monte Carlo simulation of setting targets and then having OptionVue compute various probabilities. And so if I want to change these numbers, I can say first target 2483, second target say 26. Uh-oh, I hit a button. I'm sorry, different button. Okay, 2483 to 26. And when I change this and type in anything I want, then I can see different percentages filling in. We're really weighted heavily here. So let's look at this. Probability of finishing below the lowest target. The lowest target meaning 2483. The probability of us finishing below that is 93.3%. So the chances are, and I like to call probability calculator the chances are screen. So the chances are that the stock's going to be below 2483 by 5 days from now. 93%. We got a 93% probability of the stock being below 93.3%. Okay, and then we can see the probability of ever touching the 2483 level is 8.3%. The probability of finishing between 2483 and 26 is 6.7%, and then these are almost never, so that's why it says 0%. The probability of ever touching the highest target of 26, the probability of finishing above 26, 0%, or it's so minimal that it just says 0. So this is a very good way to come in here and gauge whether your prediction for stock price movement is a fair prediction. Is it realistic? And if it's not, then you better not think about doing it, okay? So I like to come in here and look at the probability calculator, use that first, and then with all of that information and with my price chart, bullseye target, you don't have to have this, but you can, set up. Now we can go, and we've got prices all set up on the matrix. Now we can go into TradeFinder and actually step through these 5 tabs, hit go, and get some trade ideas. And this is kind of what I was leading up to for the first part of my discussion today, and then I'll do part 2 the next webinar that I do. I'll go into part 2, and take you further with trades that we find. So right now, I'm going to say I want to look at Intel because we've got that all set up, and we can then go assets to include. I'm just going to select selected assets and choose that the second button here fills in Intel here. Now we go to targets, and we can see the symbol is stock. It's Intel. We're only looking at one asset today, not a whole lot of assets. And all this good stuff is already filled in because it's filling it in from that bullseye target information on the price chart. The target type we've specified is a price range, and the projection is a date range. We're getting out between November 8th and November 15th. We're saying the low is 24.83, the high is 25.99, and that's it for that. Now we can go to strategies. When we go to strategies, we've got so many choices. This is a wonderful screen because it goes through pretty much every option strategy you could ever possibly imagine, everything from long options, married puts, collars, the vertical, meaning the same month, spreads, back spreads, debit spreads, straddles, strangles, butterflies, and condors, and then short options that are covered, short options that are not covered, covered combos, synthetics, vertical, meaning the same month, credit spreads, ratio spreads, horizontal, meaning 2 different months. You can do credit spreads, diagonal credit spreads, short straddles, strangles, butterflies, covered rights on convertible securities, and you can even include leaps if you want leaps included in the trade finding ability. I can say select all, deselect all. I can say select only the covered positions so that I don't have high margin requirements, and then I can actually even start unchecking. So if I really don't want short options, short the underlying, I don't want long options or married puts, I don't want to buy just the stock or doing collars, I really want to concentrate on these, okay? So these are this customizing that you can do right in here. You can also just look at calls, just look at puts, or include both. And I can explore all these main strategies, and if I've got an existing covered call and I want to roll it, I can actually have OptionVue in the TradeFinder select a covered call that would be using an existing covered call and then showing me how to roll out to the next month, roll out or roll up to the next month. So these are the ones I'm selecting for this particular thing. Now let's go to the Goals tab. I'm going to give it a capital provided of $5,000 to, that means I'm using $5,000 for just this one trade, not for my entire trading portfolio, but just for the trades that I want TradeFinder to come up with. And with this amount, it's going to recommend the correct number of buy and sells that would utilize my capital provided. I can compare the results based on profit and loss, which would give dollar amounts, yield, which would give percentage amounts, or an annualized yield. I like to see dollars and cents, so I'm going to go look at profit and loss. Again, OptionVue's TradeFinder, unlike anything else that's in the marketplace, either in a brokerage platform or anywhere else, can include an existing position in your analysis. So if you've got a covered call, or if you've got an existing credit spread or a debit spread and you want that to be included in TradeFinder's capabilities of coming up with new positions, it can do that. We don't have an existing position right now, but it can certainly include that. And then I can actually then look at when it comes up with straddles, strangles, and condors, if I want the amounts that I buy and sell to be the same, then I would have a call ratio, a call to put ratio 1-to-1. If I don't care, if it says buy 5, sell 2, for example, that would be a call to put ratio that we call delta neutral. So it's coming up with the amount of buys and sells that are not equal numbers in order to stay what we call delta neutral. For right now, I'll just leave it on 1-to-1. Okay, now to the Filters tab, and this is, which most people don't see this at first glance, this is an option qualifier filter screen. So that means all of these things have to do with option things, not stock things, okay? So the minimum days to buy, the minimum price to buy would be about an option price, like 0.05 or you know, 0.10 or 50 cents would be 0.5. So that's all about option qualifiers. The default here, I believe, is volume is greater than or equal to 1. So that means I want an option to appear on the screen that's going to have a volume that's at least 1. You know, at least one contract on the option is trading. Same with open interest. I want to have at least one open interest come up, an option that's got at least one outstanding contract that's still out there on the marketplace. This is only here because of liquidity. So I can take these out if I don't want them, but they are here. And avoid selling deep in the money American style options is always checked just because I don't want to be assigned. And that's kind of as a precautionary measure. You can also check mark avoid selling stock short if you're using some stock, you know, getting into wanting to sell stock, or not wanting to sell stock, sorry. Okay, now all of these tabs are completed. Before I hit go, I want to look at the ranking basis because there's 7 choices for how the results can be ranked. These are very well explained in the user's guide, and I'll show you where to find that in just a minute after we run this TradeFinder. But the expected return will give us a ranking basis that will be based on dollars. And expected return would mean what's got the highest expected return will come to the top of the list. You can do worst case return, just the best case return if you're very optimistic, the probability that you'll get profit in percentage terms, and then you've got some ratios of best case return to worst case return, the ratio of expected return to the worst case return, and the ratio of expected return to the standard deviation. So for now, we'll just use this. This is the most math-intensive part of the program. When we run the Go button, it comes up and tries to scale through as many of trades, ranking them. We can now see how many trade recommendations we get. And the most we can get and see is 50, and that's exactly how many we have. So we can scroll through and see all the various choices. Based on these strategies that we had check marked here, we've now got some results that we can look at. The top several trades seem to be strangles, then a vertical debit spread, more strangles, a diagonal debit, more strangles, a vertical debit, more strangles, and that's pretty much it. Vertical debit, diagonal debit, back spread. So now let me read this across. If I were to highlight the very first trade and kind of read it across so you can understand what this means, a lot of people don't understand this. If this has more than one leg, let's say it's a 4-legged strategy, then we would see more than just one thing here. But this is leg 1, this is leg 2. So this strangle means with our $5,000, OptionVue says you can afford to buy 833, and I don't want to do this because it's only at 3 cents and at 1 cent, but that's why it's recommending you could buy so many of these. 833 of the November 25 calls at 3 cents. Simultaneously, you would buy 833, because remember we said we want the same amounts to be recommended. 833 of the November 20 puts at a penny, and the net price is 4 cents, the worst case return, expected return, best case return. So that would be explaining what this means. The goal, remember I said we didn't really fill in the goal of any, or filter rather, of anything as far as a minimum price to buy or a minimum price to sell. So we can further limit that by coming here and typing in some amounts if you don't want to see these kinds of things. I'm just doing this for educational purposes, not for trading purposes today, as you already know. So, but anyway, this kind of gives you an idea of some expected returns, which are astronomical here. And also it gives you, let's take one of these here further down, highlight one. This would be a diagonal debit spread where you can afford to buy 294 of the weeklies, okay, because we are including weeklies. We saw those in the matrix. The weeklies, the fourth weekly, and it's 24 and a half calls at 17 cents, and then selling 295 of the November 25 calls at 2 cents. So that just kind of gives you some ideas. Let's click on the strangle. We'll see 113 of the weekly, the first weekly, at 24 and a half calls at 27 cents, and then buying 113 of the first weekly 23 puts at 15 cents. If I wanted to then analyze this, I could hit the Analyze button, and I would be able to go see a graph of my performance. And it's in the profit zone over here is our range. I don't want to get into this today, though. That wasn't part of my presentation. But this is how you would take the next step and then graphically look at the trade over time and see, you know, what percentage returns you're making and within your expected target area. So I'm going to just do a little recap. Before I do the recap, I do want to show again that, not again, but I wanted to show you at the beginning where you can go into Help and check and look for the User's Guide. I would actually want to take you to the company homepage and show you at the Support tab. Here's the Getting Started Guide, and here's the User's Guide. If I click the User's Guide, we're in the process of making this up to date for OptionVue 7, but there is a full User's Guide that very much applies, even though it was for a previous version, OptionVue 6, still applies today. And you can read through and kind of get an idea of reading more about the mathematical models, for example. The table of contents is right here, so you can pick different areas that you want to read about and learn about and study. And I would definitely recommend Under the Hood. And starting on page 227, we see the options pricing, futures pricing, the volatility, how it works, the slippage, and then a really nice glossary of trading terms here on page 242. We can also learn more about OpScan, value sheets, BackTrader, and all the things that we've been talking about, the matrix, the portfolio manager, and so forth. That's all here in this User's Guide. There's a great Getting Started Guide, too. And that would be right here under the Getting Started Guide. So at this point, let's recap what we did today. And the very first thing that we wanted to do was when we come into the quotes display, we want to make sure that we see that we've got quotes coming in by looking at our logo and making sure that the little moon is circling the globe. We want to see what NetView server we're on and how many symbols we're using. We want a batch update right here. We can do a batch update or go to NetView and update asset files or update price chart files if we just want to do price charts. If we're going to go into BackTrader, that would be here. So NetView is a very important thing to do at the very first. After we get prices, the next thing we want to do as a beginner to the program is to look under price charts and start to get some ideas of trends that are developing in any of your assets that you found by looking at the survey button and looking and getting some ideas in survey, highlighting those and sending those over to the quotes display. So the price charts to get kind of a forecast in mind of what you might want to like. And the forecast is really useful because you're going to look at and use TradeFinder. As a beginner, you're going to very much concentrate on using TradeFinder and the other auto scan tools. The survey, we didn't have time today for OpScan, but the survey, very, very useful for getting those initial trading ideas, doing the price charts, then looking at TradeFinder after you've run and gotten your prices on the various assets that you're going to analyze to find option trades with. And coming here, going through each of these tabs and then hitting go, starting to highlight a couple of these trades and hitting the Analyze button. So that would be a wrap-up today of what we discussed as a beginning options trader to the software, beginner to the OptionVue program, the ABCs of getting started. So I look forward to seeing you guys in Las Vegas. I hope to meet quite a few of you in person, maybe even most of you for the very first time. And look to hear Len as he discusses at the presentation in Vegas. Again, those dates are November 20th through the 23rd, and we look forward to seeing you there. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at karen@optionvue.com. Okay, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.